So, good afternoon. Today I'm going to share with you this topic that I like a lot. And the title is The Beauty as the Way to God in Saint Augustine of Hippo. This is the structure of the research, the introduction, 3 parts, and then the conclusions. So in this paper I will try to explain to you how Saint Augustine reached God through the beauty. So, for centuries, the topic of aesthetics has been left aside by most influential thinkers, and priority has been given to the other transcendental philosophical categories, such as truth, goodness, and unity, which are manifested in the world, in the beings it contains, and which are attributes of God present in His creation. However, if we go back to the middle of the 4th century, we find a thinker, a wise philosopher, and a theologian, and a representative of the Church, noted for the abundance and richness of his writings, named Saint Augustine of Hippo, who developed an itinerary towards transcendence based on the concept of beauty. He teaches us that through beauty we find a sure path to the discovery of God, because it is undeniable that in every existing thing this transcendental element manifests itself. Beauty in particular is the path by which Saint Augustine was inspired to try to reach, or at least approach, knowledge of God. This project aims to answer the question: it is possible to approach, reach, and know God through the beauty that comes from Him and from His creation? To provide an adequate response, the concept of beauty is reflected on in both metaphysical and theological terms, just as the author did, and as we find in his writings, mainly in his masterpiece, The Confessions. This is the primary objective of our research. The motivation of developing this research project is a particular interest in studying in greater depth the theological concept of beauty, which has been forgotten for so long. Because of this, the contemplation of beauty in material and spiritual creation, or in God's salvation of men, has been forgotten, which has had a negative impact on the very experience of truth and goodness, since the transcendental elements of truth, goodness, unity, and beauty are inseparable from each other, and the neglect of one of them has catastrophic repercussions on the others. Thus, with this project, we intend to discover the close relationship that exists between aesthetics and Augustinian theology. This paper will examine the influence of the concept of beauty along the path of interiority and contemplation in Saint Augustine. In his Confessions, the powerful impact of beauty on his contemplative experience is clear. He says, "And to all things which stood around the portals of my flesh, I said, tell me of my God. You are not He, but tell me something of Him. Then they lifted up their mighty voices and cried, He made us. My questioning was my attentive spirit, and they replied their beauty. A highlight on the ontological beauty existing in things and how it referred him to different paths of interiority that gave him access to God is prevalent in his writings. In God's glorious revelation to him are awakened pleasure and fascination as God manifests Himself as the supreme truth, goodness, unity, and beauty." Part 1. The great concept of beauty in Augustine of Hippo. From a philosophical point of view, Saint Augustine positions himself as the classical heir of Greece, which, starting with Plato, affirmed beauty as the capital reality of the world. He, throughout his entire philosophical works, includes features of Platonic thought, the idea of God as creator of the world, as a demiurge who is a craftsman or artificer, an admirer of the work of his hands, the existence of the immortal and spiritual human soul, the existence of truth, among many others. Plato's belief that God is the cause of existence, the reason for understanding and order in our way of living. Augustine understands as God who is the creator of reality, the illuminator of truth, and the one who grants happiness. There is clearly an affinity between both positions, the first belonging to Greek wisdom and the second completely clothed in the Christian spirit. With respect to beauty, for both authors it consists in harmony, in order, in the right measure, in the very structure of being that precisely as such reveals the good. For this reason, Augustine tells us that order is what leads us to God, provided we keep it in life. Should we fail in keeping it, we shall not get to see God. And from another perspective, order is the government of all things, put in place by God. In beauty, it is the good itself that manifests itself and attracts the soul more and more upwards. Plato identified both concepts of good and beauty as intertwined. In addition to Platonic philosophy, Saint Augustine was also strongly influenced by Stoic philosophy. The Stoic school, wanted to be an art of living, capable of enlightening man about his destiny. One of the greatest exponents of the Stoic ethics, Cicero, said regarding beauty that all things are under the sway of nature and are carried on by her in the most beautiful manner. Nature is conceived here not as an effect or creation, but as an effective divine principle that organizes the universe. Thus, nature is a living being in which not change, but order is manifested. And in this way, it provides stability and governance to the world. The Stoic school did not believe in chance, but in this ordering force that administers everything, which Christianity later attributes to God. Can any sane person believe that all this array of stars and this vast celestial adornment could have been created out of atoms rushing to and fro fortuitously and at random? Or could any being devoid of intelligence and reason have created them? As we see, the idea of something superior to what can be achieved through nature is latent. This idea will be developed by Saint Augustine in his later writings. Thus, he will tell us, this framework of creation, this must perfectly order beauty, ascending from lowest to highest, descending from highest to lowest, never broken, but tempered together of things unlike. All praises God. Wherefore, then does all praise God? Because when you consider it and see its beauty, you praise God in it. The beauty of the earth is a kind of voice of the damned earth. And this which you have found in it is the very voice of its confession, that you praise the Creator. When you have thought on the universal beauty of this world, does not its very beauty, as it were, with one voice answer you, I made not myself, God made me? The universe is the product of the Creator, God, who structures it with wisdom, intelligence, and providence. The Stoic nature, therefore, has the properties of a person, but of a perfect person. Finally, the Stoic philosophical position is deployed by stating that everything can be said about God as long as His perfections, His goodness, His power, His omnipresence are shown. The world manifests God both for intelligence and sensitivity. For this reason, the Stoic also leaves his scientific search for what is real as an experience of contemplation. The soul reaches the realization and fullness of the good that corresponds to man when it tramples all evil to go towards the heights and penetrate into the heart of nature. There, finally, he learns what he has sought for so long. There he begins to know God. In this way, the Stoic philosophers narrate to us their spiritual experience. The soul rises to the scale of the universe, and contemplation takes it to a level that is a spiritual experience, as an exercise of wisdom. Saint Augustine draws on the sources of this philosophy and begins to impart his transcendental itinerary through the contemplation of the divine beauty. Part 2. Beauty in the thought of Saint Augustine. Throughout his writings, Augustine of Hippo rigorously developed his metaphysical doctrine, which includes, with special importance, the concept of order. This concept is fundamental because it affects the entire being. The being is to be ordered. If it is disordered, it disintegrates. For this reason, he thinks of the world created with order, as endowed with meaning and beauty. In chaos, neither being, order nor beauty can exist, only nothingness. Therefore, creation is the overcoming of chaos. Order must contemplate the transcendent ordering. It must also contemplate that natural order of beings, which invites us to recognize the objective meaning of things and to perceive the call of reality. Reality is self-revealing. Its beauty points to the Creator. This contemplative experience is fundamental for Augustine. He affirms that order, however, was always with God. There was never anything outside order, nor will there ever be. This is why it can be stated with certainty that Augustinian ontology is founded on these four pillars: order, unity, love, and beauty. Consequently, the Bishop of Hippo explains that these four foundational elements interact, and he affirms that for a thing to be beautiful, its different elements must be homogeneous or similar. They must have an internal link that makes it a convenient set. The beauty formed by the totality of beings in their interconnection illuminates a universe in order. The beautiful can only be understood in relation to order. Thus, order and harmony make it clear that there is a reason, a logos, in the world. Therefore, it is beautiful. Ordering is the key to all beauty. Beauty occurs in a reality that is God's creation, good, order, and harmony. This reality is a universal fact. It extends to everything, because the world is a divine work and forms a universitas pulchritudo. In understanding this universal beauty is a decisive key, is the notion of order. The beautiful can be understood only in relation to order. There is nothing put in order that is not beautiful. Beauty has the same extension as any other transcendental category, and is noticeable by itself, stands out, is easily seen, and in this way something is beautiful to extent that, when perceived, it pleases. Relating these two fundamental concepts in his doctrine, beauty and order, he affirms that beauty is a transcendental category that characterizes the entire reality. Concrete things are beautiful because their components are similar to each other, and through an internal link, they form a convenient whole. The creational order is loving in nature. It is an order that tends towards communion and seeks unity. Beauty is the fruit of this loving order. Therefore, order, unity, love, and beauty form the network that expresses the interpretation of reality, according to Saint Augustine. Love is beautiful, and in all beauty there is a spark of love. As a consequence, the free nature of the beautiful can be highlighted. Hence, there is no necessary connection between the beautiful and the useful, as one person cannot see profitability from beautiful things. Beauty is not at the service of other goods. It is an end in itself, due to its high value. This is why we say that the world is a most beautiful order of very good things, in which each thing is beautiful and each individuality is grouped together, forming a most beautiful whole. All knowledge of God is given through mediation, and therefore can only be given through the reality of the world. Through the mundane, God can manifest himself to man, and in this way, man can know God. Augustine was one of the thinkers who has most illuminated the concept of beauty. Throughout all his writings, we can see his efforts to define beauty as splendor ordinis, that is, brilliance or splendor of order. Among the notions that energize his entire spiritual life and that are at the top of the Augustinian theory of enlightenment are the concepts of unity, truth, goodness, and beauty. Beauty, however, is like the summary of all of them. It is what gives the ultimate meaning to all these notions. Therefore, without beauty, truth becomes tyrannical. Goodness becomes hard moral requirement. Both need beauty. There must be a reasoned balance between the three. Truth, insofar as it produces delight toward freedom, is what beauty is for Saint Augustine. Aesthetic pleasure, the pleasure we feel in beauty, is something absolutely disinterested. In the presence of the beautiful, we are satisfied with mere contemplation. For Augustine, aesthetic pleasure is not only something disinterested, but it is what frees us from the interests of our reality, to push us towards the disinterested acting of our deep self. Beauty is the call that God makes to us to free ourselves from our worldly dispersion, from that which guides us along paths of disintegration, so that we may be a whole and order self, therefore beautiful in contemplation of Him. The beauty of things is a questioning of our being in order to God. It is a questioning of our being in order to our deep reality. Beauty is always, in all fields and levels, the provocation to the exercise of freedom. About the things in creation, Saint Augustine confesses, "My questioning was my attentive spirit, and the reply their beauty." Beauty is the fascination of interiority. It is the fascination with reproducing in ourselves the image of God, with resembling God in our interiority, with being interior to ourselves. What is ultimately our justice or any other virtue but the beauty of the inner man? And certainly it is by force of this beauty that we have been created in the image of God. Beauty at its highest level, insofar as it is beauty so ancient and so new, produces in the soul that mystical presence of God, which Augustine gradually came to know through the entire process of his conversion. Until that decisive moment in his life, he was captivated by the beauty of creatures, without moving from them to God. And he confesses to us, "And upon the shapely things you have made, I rushed headlong. They held me back far from you. Those things which would have not been, were they not in you. That is, until the revelation of absolute divine beauty led Augustine to him. Through this experience was later than he hoped. Late have I loved you, beauty, so ancient and so new. Late have I loved you. Lo, you were within, but I outside, seeking there for you. I misshapen, you were with me, but I was not with you. You called, shouted, broke through my deafness. You flared, blazed, vanished my blindness. You lavished your fragrance, I grasped, and now I pant for you. I tasted you, and I hunger for your peace. The awareness of cosmic beauty was for him a fundamental experience, and seeking the concept of the beautiful that he perceives with deep emotion was a permanent aim throughout his entire earthly existence. Part 3. The spiritual beauty of the virtuous man that directs him towards God. This work constitutes a natural testimony of its creator. The creator leaves behind a certain presence in the beings, made by him, and in particular in their beauty. Reality, in terms of its beauty as a totality, is the expression of a divine idea, an image of the beauty of God. Augustine of Hippo proposes two specific types of religious experience to encounter beauty. First, the most direct perception of the sacred in the splendor of creatures, and secondly, the knowledge of God through them. Perhaps God first asks us to marvel at what exists, at His creation, before rushing to admire the Creator. In the beautiful, a perfection is revealed that puts us in contact with the Absolute, puts our spirit in contact with the truth and the good. In the disinterested and gracious harmony of things and beings, and of the beauty that produces admiration in the hearts of men, the miracle of a mysterious grace is present that puts us in communication with an origin full of reason and love. Religious contemplation of the beauty of things moves the believer to praise God. It is important to learn to contemplate the splendid nature of beauty. This contemplation that must be practiced, given the value and superior beauty of man, will lead to discovering the beauty of spiritual freedom through open trust in the God, who is the splendid source of the beauty of creatures. In short, the beauty and order of nature and its beings, and the mystery of its beauty, each man to trust more in God, who is its source. Perfect beauty is not of this world. However, in the imperfection of created things, true beauty arouses nostalgia and aspiration for its perfection in the human spirit, always thirsty for infinities. The beauty that lives in the human spirit, the joy of a mysterious communication from God, is also capable, by its strength and charm, of capturing within itself all the interests of man. And man can also ignore the connection of the fulcrum, beauty, with the absolute. Beauty remains a rationally unsolvable enigma, and can become a true labyrinth when man lives superficially, essentially imprisoning him so that he cannot reach spiritual realities. But it is precisely the experience of divine beauty that allows man to preserve and live deeply the natural union of the beautiful with the true and the good. Due to its insufficiency and ambiguity, the beauty of the world cannot have saving potential, as it is precisely the world that needs to be saved and protected. In this way, we can ask the following question: Is there a beauty that will save the world? Beauty can be saving in the sense that it brings us closer to the mystery of God, as it directs us towards an encounter with absolute beauty, from which we can receive the definitive saving grace. If on the one hand beauty awakens the best in us, in the other hand it leads us to go further and arouses the desire to encounter what is transcendent. Perhaps more than this, or more easily than intellectual contemplation, which refers the truth of being, beauty's immediacy, splendor, universality, and gratuitousness make it a very direct proclamation of the creative principle from which these wonders arises. The Book of Wisdom already tells us that for from the greatness of the beauty of created things, their original author, by analogy, is seen. It is true that even in the midst of little interest in truth and respect for goodness, man continues to keep alive his awareness for the beautiful. The aesthetic path can offer us a singular route to the religious experience. The vision of the beautiful in its splendid, attractive, beneficial appearance is close to the contemplation of the divine. The mystic person is in certain regards a contemplative of the beauty of the world, who reaches its definitive, ultimate, or most radical perception, managing to see in the order or internal form that constitutes being and that radiates in beautiful splendor, the flame of divine fire on the heat of the creative breath of the Spirit. The religious experience of beauty opens to the pure act of believing, that is, giving way to not seeing, overcoming sensoriality, believing something that cannot be seen with reason or sight. For this reason, the idea of beauty must be found in the soul, and man must seek it, he must go to meet it. For Saint Augustine, the reality of beauty means going beyond what we can simply observe. It must be part of a process of approach that surpasses the boundaries of reason, and that is directed mainly to the field of faith, which is why he writes these wonderful lines. I put my question to the earth. I question everything in health. I question the sea and the great deep and the teeming live creatures that crawl. I question the gusty winds in every breeze with all its flying creatures. To the sky, I put my question, to sun, moon, stars. Then they lifted up their mighty voices and cried, He made us. My questioning was my attentive spirit, and the reply their beauty. In Saint Augustine, religious aesthetics prevail, but he is a great contemplative of the beauty itself. He has the experience of his conversion from the perspective of beauty. That is why he always has a great aesthetic experience of God, and that is also why in his religious dynamic he often speaks directly to God's creation, asking the sun, for example, or the stars or wind, the reason for their beauty. He says that the beauty of all things becomes like the universal confession of the beauty of God. The creatures, with their beautiful order, invite to us to think about their Creator. On the part of man, there is the effort and commitment to investigate the depths of being to reach God. In the testimony of Saint Augustine, we see clearly reflected that men, seduced by the beauty of the elements of the world, deified them and worshipped them. They appear so beautiful to the eyes, but man did not recognize the Creator in them. The beauty of the creatures with which God has freely adorned them is a revealing sign of His paternal goodness. Beauty is useful to reach God. The order and beauty of the world have pedagogical value and guiding power from the corporal to the spiritual. Beauty proclaims divine reality. There are beautiful things because they reflect the superior original beauty that emanates from God. And that beauty of things, even though it is transitory, can and should serve as a path of spiritual ascension towards God, their supreme origin. There is no deep perception of beauty that is truly liberating and that leads towards its transcendent origin without a certain spiritual discipline. Therefore, there will be no experience of God from the beautiful if man is not careful seeker of the ultimate mystery that shines in that beauty. Religious aesthetics leads us to consider rationally and radically the beauty that radiates from the world and lead us towards God. Contemplating and admiring beauty is the final endeavor of reason in its understanding and interpretation of reality. This is the aesthetic theory that flees from the subjectivism and opens up to beauty in its objectivity. In this aesthetic, question about the origin and ultimate meaning in connection with its intimate nature cannot be missing. Therefore, the most valid theory of beauty should not avoid the religious perspective. This religious perspective maintains the permanence of the beauty of creatures in the absolute personal transcendence that is their creator. The gratuitous, the unexpected, the charm and fascination of the beautiful sharpen the question about the origin of the being that manifests itself in the contemplation of man through such beings. It is uncontrollable nature. Before reason, beauty is destined to remain either as an unsolvable enigma or as a mystery. Religious understanding assumes and radicalizes the natural rational transcendence of beauty and safeguards its ineffable, free, beneficial character. Thus, religious intelligence leaves beauty really defined as a mystery, and God appears as the ultimate source of the loving beauty that illuminates the world. The Creator can be seen as the supreme being, seat of all ideas or eternal reason, since He is the cause of all things, of truth, of goodness, of beauty. He is beyond everything, more than truth and good, and is the sum of beauty. It is part of the divine seduction that draws men and women to God. Being ignorant of all this at the time, and in love with beautiful things below me, I was plunging into the depths. To my friends I would say, do we love anything save what is beautiful? And what is beautiful then? Indeed, what is beauty? What is that what is it that entices and attracts us in the things we love? Surely, if beauty and loveliness of form were not present in them, they could not possibly appeal to us. This seduction of beauty finally opened the mind and heart of Saint Augustine, thus following this spiritual itinerary that led him towards the contemplation of God. If sensuous beauty delights you, praise God for the beauty of corporeal things, and channel the love you feel for them unto their Maker, lest the things and please you lead you to displease Him. Conclusion. Beauty in Saint Augustine is an act of elevation, an act of creation. It is the place where faith occurs. Beauty is in the true belief in the Supreme Being, God. In Saint Augustine orders the aesthetic facts by building a bridge between man and the universal beauty that is God. He also considers it as an obvious act accessing the possibility of going beyond reason, which is above the borders of those limits that beauty establishes, and which accesses that space of faith where believing becomes the creative impulse of the human being. The universe is a book that exposes the presence and beauty of God. It is a great book, the very beauty of creation, written by God and it is necessary to read it properly. There are beautiful things because they reflect the beauty of the Creator. If the sun is so beautiful, how much more beautiful is its Creator, says Saint Augustine. This order of reality, harmony, and creative interrelation point towards a divine mind, the Creator, in contrast to a world burdened by a mysterious rationality that seeks to sustain and explain everything. If biblical revelation makes known the origin of the world by a Creator God, human reason can reach a certain perception of Him from reality, in its consistency, order, and beauty. Order proclaims the creative intelligence that achieves its creation, but by ordering and proclaims a divine reason and pre-existing eternal world. It would be a profanity not to see beauty in nature without paying homage to God at the same time. That could be considered as a kind of idolatry, staining nature by only looking at it as if it had no relationship with anything else, putting it in the place of God. In this regard, Saint Augustine states, wherever you turn, God speaks to you through certain vestiges that He printed in His words. And as you are already on the verge of decaying towards the exterior, it claims you within, so that everything that delights you in anybody and seduces you through the bodily senses, you consider to be something numbered, and you investigate its origin and understand that whatever you achieve with the senses of the body, you could not approve or disapprove of if you did not possess within yourself certain laws of beauty to which you refer all the beautiful realities that you perceive on the outside. With this last reflection, St. Augustine underscores the fact that the beauty is indeed a reliable path for the search and encounter with God. He experienced it this way, and in his own life, and the contemplation of the beauty led him to his Creator. Just like him, we can also travel our own aesthetic spiritual itinerary to transcend our present reality and open our spiritual eyes to finally contemplate the delights of God in all His majesty and beauty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fernando, for sharing your knowledge with us. And I was wondering if anyone had any questions? Anybody have any questions? Okay. Yes.
Ask a question. I always called him Augustine in class by accident. Fernando, can you tell us what your attraction to this topic was and how it came about and how it evolved in your life?
Well, I like this topic of aesthetic, of beauty, because maybe in the monastic life that I lived, we normally pray with the nature, pray with everything that words created. So it's a other kind of prayer maybe, but I discovered in that kind of prayer a beautiful way to reach God. So it's a pleasure for me to write about this and to share this kind of living. Now I'm not living in contemplation life more, but I enjoy to share these kind of things, and I continue praying, for example, with the contemplation, the beautiful, the aesthetics, and that's the reason because I decided to write this.
Well, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And